Hello, everyone. This is Noah Villaverde, host of Blank Green Canvas, back again with another episode of the podcast. And once again, I am joined by my good friend,
John Maffeo, also known as MaffmanJones.
Yes, indeed. And before we get into our discussion on episodes 7 and 8 of WandaVision, I just got to ask, John, how have you been doing?
I've been doing okay. If you've been following this whole time, I've been doing better. As you can see, a little change of scenery. I moved into the apartment and still getting things together with the makeshift curtain, waiting for blinds to come in. But I got the TV, the PlayStation, the shelf, got some things coming in, and it's exciting times. Happy to get things going. How you been?
That is wonderful to hear, man. Oh, I've been doing all right. Speak of the devil, me and my folks actually have been moving to our new house as well. There is a makeshift curtain right next to me, as you could see. My bed's a little, still getting used to everything else. But yeah, we're still moving things around and trying to make sure that for the first time since 2014, the garage that we have will no longer just be a storage unit, but will actually be used to put our cars in there.
Wow. Being put to use the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, not as a storage
Awesome.
unit, but
Yeah.
but besides, obviously, both of us have been in the process of moving to our new places. I'm very envious of the fact that you have a PS5 in your background, but that's another story for another time.
It wasn't
But
intended, but maybe it was. Maybe it was.
nice flex there, nice flex. But have you watched anything in the last 2 weeks or so
In the
besides
past two
obviously
weeks,
WandaVision?
I've watched a couple movies here and there. I've been doing a lot of rewatches. I just finished The Matrix again. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and it always holds up. And I also just finished Tom and Jerry. Wasn't good. Wasn't good. Put me to sleep. I tried finishing it last night. Didn't work out. And then I watched it. I finished it today. Kids are gonna enjoy it, but not for. It's not our demographic, I think.
Yeah, I'll probably watch Tom and Jerry only because it's available on HBO Max for free. I will say that one good thing
Sure.
about Tom and Jerry is that if you've seen the box office numbers for the weekend, given the fact that a lot of theaters are still closed, although in New York City, as you know, they're going to be looking to reopening theaters in the coming Friday, just in time for Raya and the Last Dragon,
Oh yeah. We'll see how that
which I
goes
am
next
stoked
weekend.
for. I'm
Mm-hmm.
stoked for that film. I will probably watch Tom and Jerry just because of HBO Max and it's available there because why not? And speaking of HBO Max, I did watch Judas and the Black Messiah, which I thought was
Ooh.
wonderful.
Yes.
Daniel Kaluuya obviously is getting a lot of buzz as he deserves. His performance is unbelievable, but I gotta say, I think Lakeith is almost as good in that film.
I think they
He
stand
is
toe to toe.
very much so, and Lakeith just has a really quiet intensity in his performance that I thought was really profound, and it's also a really important story about some, like about Fred Hampton and everything else that really should have been told. And I thought, even though in some elements it's a typical biopic here and there, I thought it was done with a lot of class and style with two incredible lead performances.
Absolutely. I agree completely.
I also watched all of the Imagineering story because I've been meaning to actually watch the whole thing, but I've been busy. And if any of you guys know about the two of us, we're both big fans of Disney parks and Universal,
Yes.
But in the case for the Imagineering story, it was 6 episodes talking about the Disney parks, the history from 1955 with Disneyland, all the way up to now. I am eager for more vaccines to be distributed because I want to go back to the parks eventually
Yes,
again to
please.
have some more fun. But anyways, speaking of Disney Plus, WandaVision has been dominating the pop culture consciousness for the last 8 weeks or 7 weeks, actually.
To say the least, yes.
Yes, it has. And we're going to be discussing the last 2 episodes before the very highly anticipated finale of this mini series, because that's what it seems to be, just a mini series.
Yeah, don't think we're getting a
And
season
we
two
are
for this.
No, this seems very definitive, especially at the fact that they confirmed that this would be leading up to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to begin our discussion here with episode 7, which was titled Breaking the Fourth Wall. And no, Deadpool was not in this episode.
Although maybe referenced or not. But we know he's coming. We know he's coming eventually.
He is coming. He is definitely coming. And this is the episode that takes place in about the mid to late 2000s overall. It's
Hmm.
obviously a send up and tribute to mockumentary comedies like The Office or Parks and Recreation.
Hmm. And Modern Family too, I think a little bit too.
Oh, yeah, definitely Modern
Yeah.
Family. You know, kind of a nice mix of all of those genres and everything else. And here we see that Wanda is just trying to have like her own mental health day, essentially, which she probably needs, you know.
Yeah. Maybe more than one, but I guess one will take one mental health day is for the sake
If
of
you will.
her insanity.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, like she has her neighbor Agnes agrees to babysit Tommy and Billy. And all of a sudden, she notices that her house is starting to change up and glitch in many ways overall. And she's trying to take control of it, but she can't.
Yeah, she's completely, you're seeing like literally in real time watching her lose control completely. And keeping it
Oh,
together is not working out.
yeah, to say the least. And sorry, in regards to Vision, he wakes up to find that there are sword agents around him, and now they are members of a circus because in the previous episode in Halloween, Wanda expanded her bubble. She expanded the realm of Westview and it went all the way to some members of Sword, and
Hmm.
now they're part of a circus.
Yeah, and it's fun to see how Wanda views these people visually. It's on the nose, on the clown nose, but it was a lot of fun to see that represented.
Yes, indeed. And of course, through this, he finds Darcy, and she's under the spell from Wanda. And when he releases her from the spell, she realizes that Vision, Vision's there, and that she finally tells him that the Vision that everyone else knows is dead. And she informs him on the events that led to what brings them to this actual circus, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah, and so in regards to that, obviously, we also have Monica and Jimmy, of course. They're with fellow Sword personnel. They try to obtain a vehicle that they could find a way to cross into Wanda's barrier, which is incredibly
It's
dangerous, obviously.
it seems like it reminded me a lot of Phantom Menace at the end with Darth
Oh,
Maul, Qui-Gon, where they had the red wall they're waiting to pass through.
oh
I don't
yes,
know why that's what I thought
definitely.
of. That's yeah.
Well, that makes sense for you and me, given that we're both Star Wars fanatics. But
Yeah.
I definitely had that same feeling too overall. And obviously, they try their hardest, but given that they're unsuccessful, Monica decides to take matters into her own hands, and she passes through, like a badass, essentially.
Yeah, she did like a honey badger. Have no fear,
Oh yeah,
just do it. And it looked like it looked very painful, but also very cathartic at the same time.
yes,
Watching her just like,
yes,
and you see like
and her
the different parts of her coming in, and it's like a really well done sequence. It was a lot really
Yeah, her
cool.
vision seems to be very heightened up after she enters through, and she confronts Wanda, which was also very cathartic because, for one, when she finally confronts Wanda, we're finally seeing episodes worth of tension between the two kind of finally come to pass. And then
Hmm.
obviously Agnes comes in and tells Monica, "Hey, you got to leave," and then Wanda takes her into the house. But then this eventually leads Wanda into a very strange lair, and
A lair,
then,
you
of
say?
course, yes, indeed. And this, of course, leads to perhaps the biggest song in the world for like a week.
It's definitely like number one or two on iTunes or something like that, from what I heard.
And
Eh,
as many predicted, Agnes is not what she seems to be.
nope.
She is actually Agatha Harkness.
Yes, and
And
this
it
is
was
one of those
Agatha all along.
theories. It was one of those
Yes,
big
it
theories that
was.
fans had that it seems obvious now, but yeah, it's like everybody was like, "Oh, yeah, that's right."
Yes, indeed, especially given Agnes, Agatha, not that much of a change in the name hint, obviously. It's a
Yeah.
really good way of kind of bringing her in. And, through her song, which Catherine Hahn actually sang very well.
I
She
didn't
has
know
been
that.
pulling all this. Yeah, she was pulling all the strings. She was pulling all the strings behind the scenes. She says that Pietro or Fietro, as the next episode she calls him, was an imposter, obviously for Wanda. And she even admits to the biggest sin of the whole show: she killed Sparky.
Did she really have to rub that in? That cute little puppy with that little
Yeah, that's
face.
Come on.
Agatha, come
Yeah,
on.
and indeed. Oh yeah, and also I love to throw out like the commercial for this episode was referencing Nexus antidepressants.
See, I don't know
And
anything
for
about Nexus. Do you know anything about what that
okay, just
entails?
let me pull out real quick what Nexus refers to. Okay. So Nexus of all realities, that's what I found in regards to Marvel's history regarding Nexus. And this has been kind of one of the last dangling carrots in the theory of the multiverse being introduced in
Okay.
WandaVision, not just because of the Doctor Strange sequel coming up, which I mean, I guess will lead into the next episode, which is previously on. Agatha reveals to Wanda about how she says that Pietro was crystalline contraction, I believe. I forgot exactly what the terms were, but some people are debating, oh, this closes the door entirely. Some are also thinking maybe not, but like that's what Nexus is referring to. Maybe it's a misdirect, but we don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah, so then after the end of breaking the fourth wall, we finally get to previously on, which is the longest episode to date. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really the most character study based episode of the whole series so far.
Mm-hmm. And I see. So I watched the episode, and I had conflicting thoughts in my head because I'm not. I'm never really at all the biggest fan of exposition dumps. But at the same time,
Hmm.
this is television, and television has episodes like this where they do this kind of thing. And I think they built it up in a way where it made sense to do this now, and it kind of. I mean, it made sense for me. But not only was it just exposition but it felt like they were giving us a lot in these moments of revelation where especially we'll get to it. Like there's a line that everybody's talking about from a scene between
Yeah.
Wanda and Vision that I mean, people are making fun of it, but I think it was a really profound moment, and I do like a lot of the material they really gave us in this episode from the flashbacks.
Yes, indeed. And speaking of flashbacks, the episode opens up with a flashback from probably hundreds of years before, in which we see Agatha Harkness being victim of a witch hunt. And it's
Hmm.
very sad to see her basically being attempted to be like basically burned at the stake by her own mom,
Yeah,
and
that's a deep cut.
yes, and Catherine Hahn and this her performance overall, like she was always funny throughout the season or the series really, and in this episode in particular, she shows her range as an actress overall. And man, like she did a really good job in this episode in particular, kind of being menacing and also very. I never really saw this from her as much because I'm mostly used to watching her in comedies. In
Yeah,
fact, speak of the devil, FX was just playing Step Brothers, and I was watching a little bit of it earlier. And Catherine Hahn is just hilarious in that, and
she's great.
which makes it all the way more impressive with her here. I got to
Hmm.
say though, in regards to this episode, I gotta give like so much credit to not just Catherine Hahn, but also, of course, to Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany, but especially Elizabeth Olsen
Oh yeah, she
because
brought the baggage emotionally the entire way through.
like in regards to performances, I'd say, and this may be a hot take, I'd say in terms of MCU performances overall, obviously top tier would be like Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man overall. I also like to give a shout out to like Josh Brolin as Thanos, Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger. But in terms of pure emotion and range in a performance, Elizabeth Olsen has always been good in these movies, but especially in this series and especially in this episode we really get
Yes.
to see the full force of what kind of actress she is.
Hmm.
And I got to give credit to the writers here in regards to how they wrote her character. I have no doubt in my mind that Wanda is going to be probably one of the most important characters in the MCU going forward
Hmm.
overall. And this episode just made us learn even more about her and real Pietro and how they were brought up. So one of the biggest revelations was that when she and her brother were still with their parents and they were alive, they bonded over their love of sitcoms.
Which, yeah, this is another thing that seemed like we were trying to get an answer to, like, why sitcoms, and this seems like an obvious answer, but again, makes sense. Makes perfect
Yeah,
sense.
indeed, John, because I was predicting, I think maybe Wanda was probably trying to find, after she lost vision, maybe she found refuge in watching a bunch of sitcoms
Or
overall.
that.
But it turns
Yeah.
out it was even earlier on, having a love for the Dick Van Dyke Show. I got a kick out of seeing Malcolm in the Middle in that mix, which I got to say,
Big
just a
focus on Bryan Cranston in
so in
this
the
season.
MCU, Bryan Cranston is actually Bryan Cranston in the MCU.
Yes. So if they ever cast
So
Bryan Cranston in anything in this like beyond here, how do you, I wonder
he has
how
to play
they
himself. Bryan Cranston as himself, or Frankie Muniz as himself, if he's interested,
Sure.
for that matter. But
I'm on the
yeah, I
Frankie
was
Muniz
really,
train.
yeah, Frankie Muniz for Marvel, sure. But overall, yeah, like, so it was cool to see her background. But then as they're watching an episode of, I believe it was the Dick Van Dyke Show, right?
It was, yeah. Something bad happens.
Yes, a full blown explosion occurs, and her parents are nowhere to
Mm,
be seen. But then we see this missile right here that looks like it's about to explode, and it's from Stark Industries.
yeah. Again, just start. Tony and his father just ruined everything.
They have a lot of they had a lot of blood on their hands with that,
Oh yeah.
and it gave a really great context to like some of the history of what goes on in this MCU, and
Hmm.
gives more obviously to why Pietro and Wanda ended up where they were overall. So we
Yeah.
see Wanda is going through her, obviously her time with Sword and everything else. We see more of like how she was brought up. We were teased even with the silhouette of her as the Scarlet Witch with the headpiece and everything, which was kind of alluded to in the Halloween episode as a fun referential gag.
Hmm.
But when that silhouette popped up, I was like, yes, finally. I was
I
so
had a hard
excited.
time piecing together what that meant, but somebody, if anybody watches Heroes Reforged, somebody mentioned that this is kind of like them kind of creating their own version of Dark Phoenix, whereas the Scarlet Witch thing is more than a individual thing. It's more of like a mantle you take on
Mm.
and a burden with.
Perhaps. I was thinking of that again recently about like the story of Dark Phoenix, obviously. I mean,
Hmm.
sure, X-Men kind of made a Dark Phoenix movie recently, which didn't really perform well for reasons, but I was kind of thinking, what if Wanda is kind of gonna become the proxy Dark Phoenix-esque story of the MCU for Phase 4? I think that would be an interesting way to kind of borrow elements of that classic storyline and using an
Sure.
already established character.
Yeah.
Be really interesting overall. But then let's go to the scene that everyone has probably been talking about the most, as you mentioned, with the line, you know,
Hmm.
where we see Wanda, which is set during Civil War. So we're seeing scenes that take place like during Civil War that we didn't see, where
Yeah.
Wanda is just kind of, like we said, she's watching Malcolm in the Middle, and she is just, trying to escape the trauma of just losing her brother, because it's still very recent in which she lost her brother.
Yeah.
And then Vision appears and comforts her. This is really where I think, the moment where they both fell in love.
That's what it seems to be. Yeah. Probably not the first time
Like
they've talked to each other, but like yeah, the first time they like really connected
like
on a
truly
deeper
in a
level.
romantic sense, where they started to realize their feelings for each other. I think it was this moment and the
Hmm.
conversation that they had where they discussed grief and loss and heartbreak. And then of course Vision brings in probably the most famous line of the series now: what is grief if not love persevering? Which a lot of people have either like praised or made fun of. There's annoying discourse online about it, but I thought
Yeah.
it fits well with the story and for what Vision would say. That's a line that Vision would say, and it did get me pretty emotional overall in the way it was handled and
Yeah.
everything.
It's a very it's just it's a nice moment of like a metaphorical way of like even though he's doing it literally metaphorically like putting his hand on her shoulder and being like I'm here for you if you need somebody to talk to like I'm here.
And I love the moment where they both just start actually like laughing at the episode when they're watching
Yeah.
it. It brings them back to earth after a very heartfelt conversation and everything. And then yes, indeed, like that was the moment where they both fell in love.
Hmm.
Definitely. And then we go to one of the more like heartbreaking moments where we see when Wanda, after the events of Endgame, she goes to Sword to find Vision's body to finally bring it to get buried. And man, that whole
Well, now
sequence really got me.
we yeah well more giving getting more reasons for Hayward to be a class A dick. Um, where he's like, we're not
Yeah,
going to let you take the body, but you can watch
three
him
billion
being dismantled
dollars,
horribly. Yeah.
$3 billion, man, like that's crazy. With what they were doing with it, and this leads to another an emotional sequence in which Wanda goes to Westview, and we see why she's at Westview.
Yeah. So
which
they were planning a life together, and they got a house. We're getting ready to make a house and a home together.
future, a
And
life that they could share.
on the blueprint for the home, in which Vision wrote something that's ow, right to the
You thought
heart.
the knife was like Wanda already dealt with knife twisting in Infinity War when she had not only did she have to kill Vision, she had to witness Thanos bring him back to life and kill him again.
Hmm.
Witnessing the love of your life die twice over the course of seconds and then coming here, it just goes to show she is probably the most emotionally, not even probably, she is the most emotionally damaged character of the whole franchise. It's not even
Sure.
close.
Yeah.
Losing her brother, losing the love of her life, and now this leads to her whole breakdown, which ends up turning Westview into her own sitcom like home.
Hmm.
It's her own way of coping, and then she finds a way to bring a version of Vision back to life
Hmm.
and bringing every member or citizen of Westview under her wings.
Yeah. It was a very like powerful moment. Like just watching her like in the middle of the groundwork of the house just kind of float up and go like psh, and like watching everything happen. So it has been her all along. Nobody's manipulating her to do this. And Agatha just kind of wants to know why. Like she's just being nosy
Yeah.
about this because she wants to
Yeah, she's
figure it
just
out.
trying to make it she's just making it worse for her.
Hmm.
It's really but it's Wanda that created this whole thing, this whole
Yeah.
mess, you know. And then this leads to one of the last confrontations of the episode where Wanda has her two, or not Wanda, I mean, Agatha has her two sons in like under her, under her custody now,
Hmm.
and using them against Wanda. And then she finally drops and references her as the true Scarlet Witch, the
Hmm.
Scarlet Witch. And then Please Stand By pops up, and I'm angry.
And you're like, and then they give you a post credit scene, which keeps you even more
Yes.
angry. It
Oh,
involves a showdown for probably that's going to go down next week, and I think it leads us to an answer for one of the questions that Paul Bettany um, gave us, where he wanted to work with this actor for a long time. Turns out it was just a fun little. I've always wanted to work with myself.
it's gonna be fun watching like that, like Vision's old body reassemble, like as the white Vision that we see go up against what we have
Hmm.
now, and it's gonna be very interesting. Like obviously we still have other characters that we're wondering about. Obviously Monica, we last saw her, she was walking down the lair, and then you know um Pietro, Evan Peters pops up saying Snoop's gonna snoop, huh?
Hmm.
And then obviously there's Jimmy and Darcy. What's going on with them? What's going on with the rest of Sword? How does Doctor Strange factor into this if possible? Which
I
I'm still
think
predicting
like
happens.
more like the over or under. I think like it's like for me, it's like 95% chance he shows up. Like if not in the episode, there's gonna be some kind of
Post
post
credit
credits
scene.
thing, and I'll be like, yeah, that's
I
gonna be
think
like the Kickstarter to the movie.
at the very least, a post credit scene, maybe with Strange and Wong, maybe like maybe they're together and they realize like, wait, what's something's up,
Yeah, maybe.
and then Strange notices like something's wrong with Wanda, and then that's just speculation, obviously,
And
but
it's not far from New York too. So you imagine people who live in New
oh
York probably see the hex from like down the block,
yes,
and they're like, "What the fuck is
like a
that?"
certain like a certain other character that we are going to be reuniting with this year,
At Christmas
but
time,
I don't think they're gonna do anything. I don't think they're gonna reference him in particular with this though. But
no.
we know he's gonna be I think in regards to those three movies, particularly Spider-Man being the second part of this multiverse series, I think that's more gonna be tangential. Like it's gonna be like what's going on. Like I do believe Wanda could have a cameo in it.
In
Like maybe,
Spider-Man, yeah, maybe.
yeah, but more so like on the TV, like Wanda Maximoff, one of the Avengers, has done something, more
Hmm.
like like footage or stock footage of her rather than a role, which Doctor Strange probably will be in,
Hmm.
for that. But I mean, WandaVision has been killing it, dude. This has
Yeah,
already become one of my favorite entries in the whole MCU overall, and I think it's one of the most emotionally fulfilling ones. And looking back at those first few episodes, which were very fun and upbeat, it adds a level of tragedy to it.
yeah. It's nice because I always had actually that was a big complaint of mine too for a while is that I wanted to care for Wanda and Vision when we got into Civil War because we at that point they're kind of connecting at that point, and I'm like I never really
Yeah.
cared for them that way, even though I was impacted emotionally by Infinity War and Endgame. I still was like, but we didn't really get that. So to have that now is a nice little companion piece where like you can put that together and it really works on its own. I think it works on its own. It's just like a nice little niche showing all the decades of television and showing this cathartic emotional story and also being a fun way to connect bridges.
That's the great thing about Disney Plus doing TV shows for their big franchises. There are characters that some might enjoy in the movies but would love to see more from, and these shows give a chance for these characters that wouldn't otherwise have their own movies and expand them and make them more fulfilling. That's something
Hmm.
that I hope Star Wars does in the future with some other characters in their franchise that I like when I watch them in the movies, but I feel we're given the short end of the stick overall compared to
Sure.
others. I'm
Hmm.
especially referring to the last trilogy. There are characters in those movies that I think would benefit with expanded series, but I doubt because some of the actors are obviously more interested in new projects.
Yeah.
But that's something that I think is great about Disney Plus shows, expanding on these characters and making them more exciting. And that's what I've always loved about Marvel is that like one of my least favorite characters initially, not because I didn't like her, was like Nebula in the Guardians movies. Like in the first movie, she's not a bad character. She's just kind of there.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. She's kind of like
But
yeah. Yeah.
but
Exactly.
as she continues, she went from being one of the least interesting characters to be like top 5 favorite for me, like in terms of her development, in terms of what she brings to the story and how she impacts the rest of the Avengers
Sure.
and obviously her connection with Thanos and her growth. One of the best arcs I'd say in the MCU is with Nebula, just to throw that
Oh,
one out
definitely.
there,
Hmm.
but yeah, so we have one more episode left, man.
Is it one? No, it's probably one episode. I don't think there's going to be a ton.
Yeah.
That's
No, like
crazy.
this, yes, it's the finale. It's only 9 episodes, and they showed the first two obviously in the first week.
Hmm.
And I am so pumped. I can't wait.
It's it's going to be the fastest. Apparently, it's going to be 50 minutes. If that's the case, it's going to be the fastest 50 minutes. Like I'm
Yeah,
not
this
looking
was
forward to it
47
ending.
minutes. Although the credits are like 6 minutes long, which frustrates me.
Yeah. So you gotta like you
Like
put
on
that you
these
take into
episodes.
consideration. Like I'm actually using, but it's actually like 30 something or 40 something for next
Yeah.
episode in this case.
But yeah, so I'm pumped, and I could tell that you're pretty excited as well for where things are going
Oh
overall,
yeah.
and we're pretty. Yes, and I gotta say, Elizabeth Olsen, I think definitely it's obviously early. I think all these actors, these three I mentioned, Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Bettany, and Catherine Hahn, are definitely worthy of Emmy consideration. But especially in my case, Elizabeth Olsen, man, in this episode in particular.
It is
Wow.
early, but I can yeah, I could see that hat being thrown in there for Miss Olsen. Definitely.
Yes, and yeah, so those were our thoughts on the last 2 episodes of WandaVision. Tune in again when we discuss the long-awaited and very anticipated finale of this series, which I believe is just going to be an event series leading up
Hmm.
to where we go there. And yeah, so John, any last words before we depart?
I know we're getting a lot of Marvel content this entire year come moving forward, but I'm kind of sad this
Oof.
is coming to an end. But I am looking forward to seeing to get to where we want to be. We got to go past this, and I'm glad that we have this to start the year on. And I'm looking forward to watching this finale and seeing maybe a glimpse of what we're going to get in future movies. And like I'm just it's a cool time. It's been a cool time, but it is a being a Marvel fan right now, it's just we're I feel like we're a little spoiled, but it's
Oh
God
yes.
bless us. I'm glad that we're getting a quality content consistently like this.
Yes.
It's
Yeah, if Falcon and the
amazing.
Winter Soldier is at least up to par of what WandaVision is, man, because think about it. We have Falcon and the Winter Soldier coming up for shows like that. Loki is coming this year. What If, which is more of kind of a one-off thing, which is more separate, but that's still
Hmm.
something. I don't know if Miss Marvel's coming out this year. I think it is.
I think it's August. It's supposed to be like sometime in the fall, and then
And of
same thing with
course,
Hawkeye.
oh wow. All
Yeah,
those shows in one year. I don't know if all of them will be this year, but maybe. And
if they
then let's
do.
not forget about let's not forget about the movies. Black Widow, Shang-Chi, the Eternals, and Spider-Man.
I wonder if they all come out this year too. Speaking of those.
And speaking of which, like people, I hope like everyone is really excited about Spider-Man and the Eternals and Black Widow, obviously. But don't sleep on Shang-Chi, guys. I think I'm not just saying it for me and my excitement for representation, but also don't sleep on that thing. I've been watching Kim's Convenience on Netflix recently, and Simu Liu is gonna be a star, dude.
He seems like a really like from Twitter too. Like what I see, like he seems like a really like down to earth, like talk to him at a bar kind of guy. He seems like a lot of fun to interact with.
Yes,
So
and
excited to
speaking
see
of
that
which, like
career
I
shine.
said, yeah, you should. If you guys haven't checked out Kim's Convenience, the first 4 seasons are on Netflix, and I've been watching. I just finished the first season last week, and I'm excited to continue on. It's really funny. It's really if you're Asian American or Canadian in this case, you're going to get a kick out of the family humor, and it's really funny. And Simu Liu is really charismatic, so I'm very looking forward to seeing what he brings to Shang-Chi. Anyways, though, this was the latest episode of the Blank Green Canvas podcast. John, I am so happy that you are getting more cured overall from your situation, obviously.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
And where can people find you besides in your living room watching the Golden Globes or playing your PS5?
When I'm not doing those two things, I could be scrolling through the Twitters, the Instagrams, the YouTubes, and all that. You can find me at MaffmanJones, one word.
Thank you, John. And once again, you could find me, Noah Villaverde. You can find Blank Green Canvas on YouTube, on the podcast, which is available through Anchor and Spotify, Apple Podcasts, among other platforms. You could follow me on Facebook. Just find Blank Green Canvas on Facebook, like that page, and find some more updates as well. On Instagram and Twitter, I am Noah_Villaverde. And speaking of YouTube, by the way, you should be excited because I am currently working on more ideas for video essays in the future, as well as potential movie reviews. You could expect potentially reviews for Raya and the Last Dragon coming up, as well as a video essay on one of my personal favorite movies, which is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year, Attack the Block.
The
So
John
you're going
Boyega
to
classic.
Yes, indeed. And I'm looking forward to I'm currently in the early stages of writing that one up and hopefully getting that one edited. Obviously, been busy lately, as you have been, given that we've both been moving and a lot of other stressful situations. But I have a lot of hope for what is looking to be an exciting turnaround for the year, especially with more vaccines being distributed and with NYC getting theaters reopened. I'm hoping that is a sign that California will have theaters reopening too, obviously with the proper guidelines, because man, do I miss the big screen.
Oh, yeah. Oh, every day. Think about it every day.
Yes, I do. And it's only been a few months since I've last been to the theater, but I am excited to go back soon, obviously masked up and safe and sanitized.
Absolutely.
Anyways, guys, I am Noah Villaverde of Blank Green Canvas, and this has been
a dope
John
ass show.
Maffeo.
I'm
A
John
dope ass
Maffeo.
show, yes indeed. MaffmanJones, Noah Villaverde, dope ass show, dope ass Blank Green Canvas podcast. Anyways, once again, thank you
I
for watching
want
and
the
or
control of my
listening.
brain.
Yes, indeed. That's it is what it is. No wonder the Wi-Fi has been off. Maybe, I mean, Westview is not too far away from where you're at,
No, it's not.
and
It probably
by
wiped over.
and by proxy, since I'm on a web call with you, that's probably why it impacted us a little bit here, you know. But
I buy
yeah,
it.
anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening and watching, and please follow us on social media. Please like the video on here on YouTube. That way you could help us with the algorithm and more people can check it out, and we could build our own community that is a little more friendly than Wanda's in Westview. But yeah, thank you very much. And we will see you again when we discuss the upcoming finale of WandaVision.
Whoa. Can't wait.
Bye, everybody.